Why Jewish people preserve wealth for generations. Here's a question people have asked for centuries. Why are Jewish people often wealthy despite being one of the most persecuted groups in human history? They were exiled, hunted, stripped of their assets, and scattered across the world. And yet, somehow, they rebuilt, rose again, and didn't just survive, but thrived. This isn't about luck. It's not because they caught a good wave. It's because they developed a deep financial philosophy shaped by thousands of years of history, from the Torah to the Talmud, from family education to community-centered living. And if you pay close attention, these principles go directly against modern consumer culture. Today, the average American spends 103% of their annual income, meaning most people live beyond their means. In contrast, Jewish families are raised with a different priority: to save, invest, preserve wealth for future generations. Consumption isn't the goal, legacy is. Take a look at some of the names. Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle, is a Jewish American. Howard Schultz, the man who turned Starbucks into a global empire, is Jewish. And of course, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, has pledged tens of billions to future philanthropy. What do they have in common? It's not just about making money fast, it's about building sustainable wealth. They don't just know how to get rich, they know how to stay rich. They measure wealth not by mansions or luxury cars, but by freedom from debt, market chaos, and impulsive emotions. One symbolic example: Warren Buffett. He's not Jewish, but he once said, "I've spent my life reading about how Jewish people think about money." He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958. He doesn't drive supercars or burn cash to impress. He understands that keeping wealth is more complicated than earning it, and preserving it for generations. That's even harder. So the question is, what makes the difference? The answer lies in 7 ancient Jewish money principles, rules that helped individuals build wealth and helped entire communities survive war, recessions, and even genocide. These aren't tips for financial geniuses. You don't need to be rich to apply them. They start with how you think about money and treat it daily. I used to believe that to get rich, you had to take risks, hustle harder, and out-earn everyone else. But after studying how Jewish families pass down wealth across generations, I realized true wealth isn't about earning more. It's about learning how to keep what you earn. It's about going slow but steady. It's about building from the mindset up. And that's what I want to share with you in this series. Not to become Jewish, but to learn from a financial culture that survived and flourished for thousands of years, while countless others have collapsed, so you and your family can stop living paycheck to paycheck and start building a foundation for lifelong, generational wealth. Rule number 1: spend less than you earn. Wealth begins in the mindset. Have you ever noticed how some people make a lot of money, yet always feel broke, while others with modest income live peacefully and abundantly? The secret isn't in how much they make, it's in how they spend. In Jewish culture, the very first and most important rule of long-term wealth is simple: always spend less than you earn. Sounds basic, but most of the modern world gets completely backward, especially in consumer-driven countries like the US, where living within your means has been replaced with living up to society's expectations. The story of legendary Jewish investor George Soros is a powerful example. Despite being worth tens of billions of dollars, Soros is known for his modest lifestyle. No extravagance, no showing off. He once said, "I don't spend money to prove anything to anyone. I use money as a tool, not a mirror for my ego." That's the mindset across many Jewish households. They don't spend to impress, they spend to stay free. And that's the difference between being truly wealthy and pretending to be rich. There's a timeless Jewish proverb worth reflecting on. Who is rich? The one who is content with what they have. Not the one with the most possessions, but the one with the least cravings. The fewer your desires, the less control money has over you. And that's the beginning of absolute freedom. I once worked with a Jewish immigrant family in France. They had average incomes, yet they saved 30% of their income every month. They told me, "We don't need a luxury car, but we need peace of mind for tomorrow." And when the pandemic hit, both parents lost their jobs temporarily, but they didn't panic because they had a rainy day fund prepared for years. So how do you start applying this principle in your own life? Try this simple exercise. Print your bank statements from the last 3 months. Grab a red pen and underline every non-essential expense. That $4 coffee every morning, the streaming subscription you never use, the impulsive shopping spree to feel better. Add it all up. You might be shocked. Many people leak $200, $400 a month on unconscious spending. Instead of letting money drip away slowly, try dividing your income into 3 mental categories: 70% to live, rent, food, transportation, essentials; 20% for the future, savings and investments; 10% for purpose-giving, learning and community. People often say, "My salary's too low, I can't save." But that's the wrong question. The real question is, how much am I spending on things that don't add lasting value to my life? No one is too poor to save, only too rushed to think. Living below your means may sound like limiting yourself, but in truth, it unlocks an entirely new level of freedom. You're no longer stressed over bills, worried about a job loss, and most importantly, you're no longer a slave to someone else's lifestyle. Jewish families don't build wealth by living big, they do it by doing the opposite. They live, so their money has space to grow, and you can start the same way. Not with a massive income, but with a simple daily choice. Slow down. Spend with intention. Let your money serve you, not the other way around. Rule number 2. Stay away from consumer debt, because debt is the new form of slavery. In the Hebrew Bible, there's a short but powerful line: the borrower is servant to the lender. This isn't just a proverb, it's a foundational warning in Jewish financial philosophy for thousands of years. Debt, especially consumer debt, is a modern form of slavery. Look around society today. People drive luxury cars before they even have a savings account. They max out credit cards to enjoy life, but couldn't come up with $500 in an emergency. And just like that, they fall into a trap. Borrow, spend, repay, borrow again. A golden cage, but still a cage. In Jewish culture, this isn't just seen as financially risky, it's considered morally and spiritually dangerous. Why? Because debt steals your freedom. Debt forces you to work not for passion, but for payment. Debt pressures you to accept things you don't want, to survive. A classic example: Mark Cuban, self-made billionaire of Jewish descent, once said that if you're carrying credit card debt at 18% interest, the best investment you can make is to pay it off. No stock can give you a guaranteed 18% return like that. His advice to young people: there is no freedom if you owe money. Many argue, but debt helps me buy a house, a car, and live better. True, but only if you know the difference between good and bad debt. Investment debt creates cash flow, like buying rental property, funding a business, or learning a new skill to boost income. Consumer debt fuels instant gratification, buying the latest phone, taking a luxury vacation, upgrading your car to impress others. Jewish families aren't allergic to debt, but they're incredibly disciplined with how they use it. For them, borrowing is not about living large, it's about building something larger. So, what if you're already in consumer debt? Here's what to do. Write it all down. List every debt, amount, interest rate, due date, and penalties. Facing the numbers is step 1 to reclaim control. Use the avalanche method. Pay off the debt with the highest interest first, usually credit cards, while making minimum payments on the rest. No new debt at all. Cut up credit cards if needed. Switch to cash or debit only. Pause the bleeding. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. You won't need to borrow again when life throws you a curveball. Jews don't see caution as weakness. They see it as power. Power not to be manipulated by a system built to keep you spending. Imagine waking up without fear of bills or interest piling up. You're free to do the work you love, free to say no to the wrong opportunities, free to invest in your future on your terms. I've been buried in debt, mostly because I didn't know better. I thought zero-interest installment plans were innovative. I thought credit card rewards were a win. But in the end, I was just shackled by meaningless purchases. It took me years to dig out, and the only thing I regret is not learning the Jewish mindset about money sooner. Bottom line, consumer debt is the enemy of freedom. It eats away not just your money, but your confidence, peace, and future. So stop, pay it off, and rebuild your financial life on a solid foundation, just like generations of Jewish families have done. Rule number 3, prioritize knowledge. The only asset no one can steal. If there's one type of asset that can't be stolen, taxed, devalued by inflation, and yet can generate unlimited returns, it's knowledge. The Jewish people understood this thousands of years ago. It's no coincidence that even when Jews were exiled, stripped of their possessions, or forced to start over in foreign lands, they still managed to rebuild their lives and wealth. Why? Because they carried with them one invisible yet priceless asset: knowledge. In Jewish culture, learning is a lifelong obligation. The Talmud, a central text of Jewish law and philosophy, says, if you give someone money, you help them for a day, but if you teach them, you help them for a lifetime. Just look at modern history. Albert Einstein, a Jewish physicist, was forced to flee Nazi Germany. He lost his home, his possessions, but not his mind. His ideas reshaped physics forever. He was honored not for what he owned, but for what he knew. Or take Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks. He grew up in a poor Jewish immigrant family in Brooklyn. What lifted him out of poverty wasn't startup capital. It was a belief his parents passed on. Education is the bridge that gets you out of poverty. In today's consumer-driven world, many people treat learning like a phase, something you do when you're young or in school. But in Jewish tradition, learning never ends. It's not just about classrooms or degrees. They learn from experience, from failure, from mentors. They take notes, they share ideas, and most importantly, they teach it back. I once met a Jewish-American entrepreneur at a finance summit in Singapore. He didn't have an MBA or an Ivy League degree, but he read one book weekly, took handwritten notes, and shared those insights with his team. He told me, I invest in my brain. That's where every financial decision comes from. So let me ask you, when was the last time you read a book about money? When was the last time you sat down to learn a new skill? Not because you had to, but because you chose to. Jews have a learning method called havruta, learning in pairs. One asks, the other answers, then they switch. This doesn't just deepen understanding, it creates social capital. Knowledge is passed down through generations, person to person. If you're a parent, start in your own home. Don't just leave your children money, leave them knowledge. Talk to them about the financial lessons you've learned, the mistakes you've made, and the values you believe in. Never underestimate 10 minutes of reading a day, or listening to a podcast on your commute, or jotting down lessons in a personal journal. These small habits over time build the very foundation of wealth. The Jewish way: sustainable, quiet, and untouchable. From my experience, every lasting change in my finances started with a lesson, a book, or a course. Not a lucky stock pick, not a lottery ticket, just knowledge and the ability to apply it, because knowledge never goes out of style, and more importantly, knowledge is only valuable when you share it. Rule number 4, diversify. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Have you ever thought, if this investment works, why bother spreading it out? That mindset leads many people, and even entire families, into financial ruin after just one economic shock. But the Jewish community thinks differently. Dating back to ancient times, the Talmud, a core text of Jewish wisdom, teaches, divide your wealth into 3 parts, 1 in land, one in trade, and one in reserve. In other words, never put all your eggs in one basket. That principle isn't outdated. It's more relevant in today's volatile world than ever. Take Larry Ellison as an example, the founder of Oracle and one of the wealthiest Jewish billionaires on the planet. Yes, most of his wealth comes from tech, but his portfolio goes far beyond just stocks. He owns luxury real estate, invests in sports, like the McLaren F1 team, and runs private venture funds. His assets are spread across industries, asset classes, and timeframes. So when the tech market shakes, he stays financially stable. From my personal experience, I once put all my investments into tech stocks until a crash wiped out 40% of my portfolio in just a few weeks. That was my wake-up call. Investing isn't about speed, it's about building a balanced financial ecosystem, so if one part collapses, the others can support you. Jews call this approach living insurance. You're not just protecting your money, you're protecting your mindset. Here's how modern Jewish investors apply this rule. Diversify across industries. Many Jewish families invest in real estate, stocks, family-run businesses, and mutual funds. They don't chase every hot trend. They spread risk and income streams. Diversify over time. They don't go all in at once. Instead, they often use dollar-cost averaging, which is investing gradually every month to reduce risk and avoid panic during market swings. Diversify geographically. Their assets aren't tied to just one country. Even Jewish families living in the US often hold property or investments in Israel, Europe, or Asia as a hedge against political or economic instability. Another great example is Sheryl Sandberg, former COO of Facebook and of Jewish heritage. Her income wasn't just from tech. She wrote books, invested in education, and collaborated with nonprofits. Each income stream was independent, giving her financial breathing room. So what can you do right now? Don't put all your money into one type of asset. Balance between stocks, real estate, cash, and if possible, invest in yourself or your business. If you can't diversify across sectors yet, start with time. Don't invest everything at once. Spread your contributions out monthly or quarterly. Understand that investing is not a one-time gamble. It's a long-term game. The goal isn't to strike it rich overnight. It's to grow steadily without surprises. Remember this, Jews don't build wealth on luck. They build it on strategy. And a smart strategy always begins with smart allocation. Rule number 5, track every dollar. Good accounting is the key to freedom. In Jewish culture, managing money is never treated as a casual task. It's an art form, even a sacred responsibility. One of the most fundamental financial rules passed down through generations is this: always know where your money is going and why. It sounds simple. But the truth? Most adults have no idea how much they spend on food, entertainment, or random monthly expenses. They work hard and earn well, yet somehow their bank accounts are mysteriously empty by month's end. The Jewish mindset is radically different. They treat money the way a gardener treats seeds. Every dollar is a seed that can grow if planted in the right place. And to plant it wisely, they track it, review it, and always see the big picture before making financial decisions. A prime example, Sheryl Sandberg, legendary COO of Facebook. Sheryl Sandberg, one of Silicon Valley's most powerful Jewish women, once shared that she's always managed her finances meticulously. Whether she was a student at Harvard or a billionaire executive, Sandberg tracked every expense with spreadsheets and created detailed annual plans, including potential expenses like medical emergencies, car replacements, or education investments for her kids. She believes that financial freedom doesn't come from how much you earn, but from how well you control your spending. That's why she didn't just become rich. She remained resilient through life's storms, from her husband's sudden passing to leaving Meta with hundreds of millions intact. The Jewish mindset: money is a tool, not an emotion. Jews don't let emotions dictate how they spend. They don't spend because they're sad, bored, or trying to impress others. They spend on purpose, value, and strategy. Even in average income Jewish households, tracking money is non-negotiable. They use notebooks, ledgers, or simple apps to categorize spending into clear buckets: essentials, growth, savings, charity. They never let money leak or go untracked because they deeply understand losing control of your money is the beginning of losing your freedom. My take: tracking spending is a habit of the free, not the stingy. Some people used to tell me, tracking every dollar, that's no way to live. But here's the truth. When you don't track, you spend more, invest less, and get lost on your financial journey. I started tracking my money at 25, after being shocked by how fast it vanished. Just 3 months of applying this Jewish-style tracking changed everything. I cut 28% of unnecessary expenses and finally had extra cash flow to invest. It was a game changer. Core lesson: freedom doesn't come from vagueness. Jewish families aren't wealthy by luck. They know precisely what every dollar is doing. And if you start documenting your financial life today, whether in a notebook, an Excel sheet, or a simple app, you're stepping onto the same path that generations of Jewish families have walked, the path of clarity, resilience, and true prosperity. Rule number 6, give to preserve. Tsedakah isn't charity, it's a responsibility. There's a fascinating paradox in Jewish wealth. The more they give, the wealthier they become. However, giving in Judaism isn't what most people consider charity. In Hebrew, the word Tsedakah doesn't just mean generosity, it also means justice, righteousness, and a moral obligation. To the Jewish people, not giving is what's truly unjust. Since ancient times, through exile, persecution, and hardship, Jewish communities have seen helping one another not as an act of kindness, but as a duty. That's one reason they've maintained such strong bonds and intergenerational wealth, even amid incredible adversity. Tsedakah, planting seeds that yield abundant harvests. Take George Soros, for example, the legendary Jewish investor. Throughout his career, he's donated more than $32 billion through his open society foundations, supporting education, healthcare, and civil rights across the globe. People often ask, is Soros rich because of his investments? But the complete answer lies in his philosophy. He gives to preserve. He once said, "I became rich because I had reasons to give." Similarly, Starbucks founder Howard Schultz, who grew up in a poor Jewish immigrant family, never forgot his roots. When success came, he channeled millions into education and scholarship programs for underprivileged youth. To him, this wasn't charity, it was giving back to the community that raised him. These stories show something profound. For Jews, wealth isn't just for enjoyment, it's for amplifying impact. And here's the twist: the more they give, the more they seem to gain. How much you give doesn't matter. How you give does. In Jewish households, it's tradition for children to place a coin in the Tsedakah box every Friday before Shabbat. It's a sacred ritual that teaches the habit of giving not out of guilt, but out of choice. Jewish families are often frugal with spending, yet remarkably generous regarding supporting temples, schools, research, and public health, because they know when the community thrives, the individual becomes stronger. This is long-term thinking, investing in a resilient social fabric, an invisible asset with immeasurable value. My perspective: I used to believe you have to be rich to give. But the Jewish mindset taught me the opposite. You need to learn to give before you're rich, not for status, but to build a mindset of abundance and let go of fear. Once, I came across a line in the Talmud that struck me deeply. A miser is the poorest of all. When we live only to accumulate, we lose connection, trust, and even our spiritual wealth. Since I began allocating 5 to 10% of my income to causes I believe in, no matter how small, my life has changed. I feel like I live with purpose. And strangely, work flows better. Money comes more easily. Practical action. Start with a fixed monthly percentage for giving, 3%, 5%, or 10%. It could be for a struggling relative, a trusted charity, or a cause that matters to you. Make giving a non-negotiable line item in your budget, just like your electric bill, not a spontaneous act. not a when I have extra kind of thing. And teach this to your kids, not through lectures, but through weekly or monthly rituals, because sustainable wealth starts with planting the correct values, generation after generation. Rule number 7, plan your legacy. Think beyond living. Think about leaving. Most people today are busy surviving, working, earning, paying off debt, maybe investing a bit. But the Jewish mindset goes further. They don't just live for today, they constantly think about the next generation and the one after that. To them, being wealthy isn't about how much you make during your lifetime, it's about how much you leave behind when you're gone. And that brings us to the final Jewish financial rule. Start planning your legacy while you're still healthy and alive. The wise don't leave chaos behind. The book of Proverbs says, "A prudent person sees danger and prepares. The fool keeps going and suffers for it." When we're young, we think we're invincible. When we're successful, we believe we're always in control. But life doesn't send warnings. Illness, accidents, economic collapse, just one shock can turn a thriving household into chaos if there's no clear plan in place. Larry Ellison, billionaire founder of Oracle and a proud Jewish American, is a prime example. Despite his massive fortune, he has laid out precise plans for distributing his wealth to his children, research foundations, and charities with a detailed will. He once said, "Failing to leave a clear legacy is the fastest way to tear a family apart." Legacy isn't just money, it's mindset, values, and guidance. In Jewish tradition, legacy goes far beyond financial inheritance. It includes letters, journals, financial philosophies, guidelines for using wealth, and deeply held values. Many Jewish families write ethical wills, documents that explain the principles they lived by and what they hope their children will carry forward. Investor Carl Icahn, another Jewish icon, made it clear he wouldn't pass down billions to his children unless they proved worthy. What he truly wants to leave them is critical thinking and financial discipline. This mindset is rare in today's world, where people hustle to get rich but often forget how to stay rich. They leave money, but also lawsuits, debt, and broken relationships. A personal reflection. I once had a friend, highly successful in business, who passed away unexpectedly. He left no financial plan. His wife didn't know their bank passwords. His children had no idea how much they owned. His parents fought over the estate. Within a year, everything he had built over 15 years was sold off and lost. That experience taught me, legacy planning isn't for the dying, it's for the living. It's a responsibility, especially if you truly love your family. Practical steps. Jews prepare for death the way they prepare for a long journey. They have checklists, detailed and deliberate. Write a will early. Don't wait until you're sick. Clarify who inherits what, who's in charge, and who handles finances. Get life insurance and health insurance, and build an emergency fund. Safely store key information, bank accounts, passwords, investment portfolios, titles, and documents. Pass down financial wisdom to your kids early. Don't wait for them to figure it out after you're gone. Talk to your family about your plan. Please don't wait until it's too late. They also review their legacy plan every 3-5 years because life changes, assets change, laws change. Leave a legacy, not a burden. The difference between the average and the enduringly wealthy isn't how much they earned, it's how thoughtfully they passed it on. For Jewish families, building a legacy isn't about dying rich. It's about living wisely, as if you're laying a bridge for the next generation to walk across. Choose the wiser path. There's a Jewish saying I'll never forget. The wise do not do what the crowd does. They do what is right, even if they do it alone. For thousands of years, through exile, persecution, and being expelled from their lands, the Jewish people rebuilt their wealth, not through luck, but through principle. No flashy displays, no chasing trends. They chose the wiser path, even when it was the lonelier one. And today, in a world obsessed with fast money, trendy investing, impulsive spending, and living only for today, these 7 Jewish money rules may seem out of sync, but they are precisely what we need most. Live below your means, say no to consumer debt, prioritize lifelong learning, diversify your assets, track every dollar, give to preserve, and start legacy planning early. These aren't get-rich-quick tactics. They form a complete financial mindset, one that allows individuals, families, and even entire communities to stand firm through any storm. So, which path will you choose? You can follow the path most people take. Spend every dollar you earn. Treat debt as normal. Only learn when forced to. Bet everything on one investment. Have no clue where your money is going. Think only of yourself, not your community. Have zero plans if tomorrow everything changes. But where does that path lead? Nearly 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt has surpassed $1 trillion, and financial anxiety shadows every meal and every night's sleep. Or you can choose the wiser path, the path of discipline, of understanding, of long-term thinking, of intergenerational responsibility. It's the path that people like Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, Howard Schultz, Starbucks CEO and Jewish, Larry Page, Google, Michael Bloomberg, and George Soros chose. Though they differ in profession, age, and personality, they all have one thing in common. They didn't just get rich, they stayed rich. A personal reflection. I wasn't born into a wealthy family. But when I discovered the Jewish way of thinking about money, I realized wealth doesn't begin with a bank balance. It starts with a mindset. And the principles they follow? They don't require a significant starting capital. They don't demand a high IQ. They don't require you to be a financial genius. They require you to slow down, think long-term, act disciplined, and live purposefully. I used to spend impulsively, invest based on rumors, ignore budgeting, and think wills were for the dying. But as I started applying each rule, one by one, I stopped panicking during financial downturns. I began to feel in control of my money rather than vice versa. And best of all, I've started passing that mindset on to my family. Final thought. Wealth is not a destination, it's a way of life. If you've followed me this far, it means you're ready. Ready to stop repeating the mistakes made by the 80%. You don't need to change your life overnight. Just pick one rule. Practice it for 30 days. Then move on to the second. And the third. Because real wealth isn't about asking, how do I make more money? It's about asking, how do I keep money and pass it on for generations? And your journey can begin today. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button to support the channel. Subscribe so you won't miss our daily videos on innovative financial thinking, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Every action you take helps grow a community building lasting wealth together.